Next up is a true champion for an all-of-the-above energy approach and chairman of the Energy Subcommittee on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Representative Bob Latta has been a strong advocate in Congress and across Ohio. He's been a key player and a great example of a workhorse when it comes to getting things done. We're proud to host him today, and I look forward to hearing his insights. Please give a round of applause to Representative Bob Latta.
Well, good morning. And it's good to follow my really good friend, John Curtis. He was a great member in the House, served on the Energy and Commerce Committee with me, and you couldn't ask for a greater guy when you're talking about energy issues. But thank you all for being here today. Because, anytime you pick up any paper, and in fact, this morning I was looking at one of the papers that came in on my desk, and the first thing I see here is a story about data centers drive up energy costs. And it says, global electricity consumption by data centers is expected to increase by 15% per year, which is 4 times the rate of consumption by all other sectors. That's really important to think about, because first, it's a great privilege to serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, because one of the things that we get to do on E&C is this. We're looking over the horizon, not just a year or two, we're looking over the horizon 5 to 10 years. And what that means is we've got to have the innovators, the entrepreneurs, everybody in to see us, because we can't formulate good public policy, in which then, of course, the regulations will follow if we don't hear from people, and especially people in this room. But as John mentioned, we're in a situation in this country that we were flatlining on electricity for so many years. We're just flatlined. And all of a sudden, what happens? The data centers start coming in. And we just saw it's just spiking. And, when that's spiking up, we were hearing that it was going to be a 4.5% to 6% increase per year. Then it went to 10%. And it's going to be about well over 10% of all energy being consumed in the country is going to be by the data centers. So we had the RTOs and the ISOs before us a couple of months ago in committee. And I always ask everybody the same question as they appear before us. Do we have to have more energy or less energy in this country? And no matter what sector or who is before us, they all say the exact same thing. We've got to have more power. But when the RTOs and the ISOs were in, they also said something also very interesting. But they also said, we cannot take any generation offline that we have right now. As the senator said, everything, we've got to be producing at that same level and above, so you can't be taking off. Because the estimate right now is that under past policies, we're going to be taking off about 105 to 110 gigawatts in the near term. But at the same time, we're being told we have to have 165 gigawatts. So if you put the two together, we're in trouble. So where are we going to get the power from? And so, as mentioned in the introduction, back in 2008, Republicans in the House, I remember what we did. We said we want an all-the-above energy policy, which meant that the federal government was not going to pick the winners and losers. This was going to be what the market dictated and not the government. Because I'll guarantee you, every time that we come up with a great idea, it's usually a bad idea. And it's really, we need to talk to the people out across the country that it's going to affect. So when you look at the amount of power we're going to have, where's it going to come from? And so again, we have to have everybody out there generating right now. I can think back when I was in college and we were being told back in the mid-1970s that the United States had no oil. We had no natural gas. That we're going to have to be dependent on the rest of the world. We're going to have to make sure, as the president said at the time, that we're going to have to turn the thermostats down, put the sweater on, walk or ride your bike to work. Well, that wasn't going to work in the country. So, but when I've talked to people from around the world today, they said, how did the United States do it? We're the #1 natural gas producer in the world, and the cleanest way to produce natural gas in the world is right here in this country. We can outproduce Saudi Arabia or Russia in oil production in any given day. And all of a sudden now, in the last 5 years, we're starting to hear, especially from our friends on the other side of the aisle, about nuclear. And this is something I've been advocating for because, again, if you want clean power right off the bat, it's going to be on the nuclear side. But we have to think about several things. Number one, where are you going to get your uranium from? Where are you going to, so, we can't always rely on Russia or Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan. And so, we passed legislation to make sure that, we're going to start taking care of ourselves in this country. I've been a firm advocate that making sure that we recycle our spent nuclear rods in this country. The French have been doing it for years, decades. And, when you talk to the experts out there, I've heard anywhere from we have enough power in our spent nuclear rods at our power plants right now for enough power to be generated for over 100 to 150 years of power right there. So all we have to do is get out and get it done. I know I've asked the question in committee several years ago about what are we going to do about this. And I heard this, well, if we get, it's pretty expensive to get started. I said, yeah, but you know what? It would have been a lot cheaper. We'd have done it 20 years ago, and it's going to be a lot cheaper if we start today than wait till tomorrow. Because the country's going to have it. And again, when you look at the usage on the data center side, it's massive. And one of the things that's left out a lot of the subjects is this. On the data center side, it's just not the one power source coming in. They've got to have two backups. So you're looking at the amount of power that has to be generated into those data centers is absolutely unbelievable. And that power usage, as this article points out, is going to keep going up. And it's important that we get this done because, again, we're in a race with communist China. If you look at the two countries in the world, they're about over 80%. It's all on the data center side. It's us and them. And there's one thing I can always tell people in this. There is no second place in this race. You either win it or you're going to lose it. And the United States is leading right now, but we've got to make sure we keep leading. But the only way we're going to be able to do it is to supply the power. And, we've got great ideas across our country. I know I've seen, how can we save power going in, that they are being used at the plants. One of the companies that's located in my district, and again, I've got 86,000 manufacturing jobs in the district. I've got the largest farm income producing district in the state of Ohio. And the one thing I tell people is this. I just don't need energy. I've got to have affordable energy, because if you don't have the word affordable in front of it, people aren't working. We can't compete. So when I look at what the companies out there are coming up with about using, if you think about like your antifreeze in your car and how you can submerge these at the data center, what they're using, pardon me, and they save the amount of power that they need to use to cool at the facilities, it's going to help. And so, we've got all these great things on the horizon in this country, but all we have to do is go out and do it. Because if people say, well, we shouldn't do it, we're going to be behind. And when I look what's happened in just the last couple of years, when I'm hearing that, people all around the country saying we're going to be looking at bringing 3 Mile Island back online and Palisades up in Michigan. So we're going to have more and more power being produced. We look at the small modulars out there and what can be done there, and putting them behind the meter at the data centers, and maybe even powering other factories and businesses. We have great things that can happen in this country. So it's using everything that we have at our disposal that is going to make sure we're on top. But I really appreciate you all being here. Let me just say this. If anybody ever has any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, hey, my door is always open. Please come in. I really need to hear from you. But thank you very much for letting me be here with you today. Thanks.